Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the meeting this morning. With me on the panel are Mr. Robert Belenke and Ms. Michelle Duncan. The city assessor this morning is Mr. Jason Brown, and Mr. Stephen Lunn is the hearing secretary. We will be hearing applications for revision for the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish, and once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 10 on our docket today. Mr. Lunn, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony. Thank you.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jason Brown.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Assessor, please state your full name. You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
My name is Jared Story.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The first matter on the docket this morning is 141 Debate Street. So, Mr. Brown, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a preliminary issue that's going to affect 6 of the properties on the docket today. If you like, I could go through that first and only once and have it apply to the other 6 or 5 properties. It is a portfolio sale that involves 6 of these properties. There's some issue with the date, but I'd like to go through that and just have it apply to all the properties.
Sure. Mr. Story, is that acceptable with you to proceed in that manner?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm just Mr. Brown, for background, what is the new information that you're submitting?
It's not new information. It's contained entirely in my brief, but I'm just going to go through the dates of the sale and maybe get Madam Chair to make a decision on whether or not the sale prices would be admissible.
Okay, and then Madam Chair, I've submitted some rebuttal to the inclusion in consideration of portfolio sales. That's a document called the IAAO. I believe it's called I have it here, the Verification Adjustment of Sales that's been submitted to you. So I suppose if you want to go through that, Jason, we can do that first, but I will have rebuttal to the inclusion or consideration of a portfolio sale.
Okay, great.
And which numbers is this applying to?
This applies to item is number 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So that's 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Correct.
Okay, sure. We will deal with the preliminary issue then.
Okay, thank you. I think it'll save some time. So I'll just go through the sale and then maybe we'll do the questions and rebuttal and then we'll go through the property. Is that okay? Or should I just go through the whole property?
Sorry. Maybe we should just go through the
whole property?
Yeah, the whole.
Okay.
Let's do the whole property, and then we can go through just the normal process. Because is this like rebuttal?
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. It's procedurally, it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Okay,
So generally, though, I mean, we would do your presentation, and then the applicants, and then the applicant rebuttal, and then the assessor's rebuttal.
Okay, great. So I'll proceed. This is file number 22-1489. Roll number 060530909000. Civic address is 141 Debate Street. All these properties are similar in functionality. They're all flex warehouses. They're all located in the same area. They're all professionally managed. So there is some commonality between all the items on the docket. So we're defending a 2023 assessment of $3,769,000. And that's based on an April 1st, 2021 reference date. This is a flex warehouse consisting of 6 premises, 1 story, built in 2 parts, 79 and 81. Wall heights ranging from 18 to 20, and a leasable area of 35,020 square feet. On page 2 of my evidence, you'll see there was a sale on June 30th, 2021. I blanked out the sale price because this is post-reference, the reference date of April 1st, 2021. However, I have evidence later in my brief that will show that this was negotiated at an earlier date. Below that, we have the subject property leases that were in place at the time of the reference date. These were all signed in 2018 and 2019 and range from $6 to $6.75. I have some maps on page 3. This is located in the eastern quadrant of Winnipeg, between Dugald and Plessis, off of Bagan on Debate Street. Some aerial views on page 4 and street views beginning on page 5 and 6. And there's one interior shot on page 7 showing the warehouse portion of one of the units. So I have some rent comparables on page 8. These were all signed between 2016 and 2020, ranging from 3 to 5 years. The leased area ranges from 4,880 to 12,524. The wall heights range from 21 to 24. Effective year built ranges from 79 to 98, or 99, sorry. And the net rents range from $6.50 to $8.95, with most averaging around the $7 mark. Capitalization rates on page 9, I've highlighted the industrial portion. The city's using a range from the 20th percentile to the 80th percentile of 5.55 to 7.45, meaning that 60% of the properties will fall within this range. Outside sources showing a range from 6 to 7.25, depending on the type, industrial A, industrial B. Page 10 shows my income workup for the subject property. We're using a leasable area of 35,020 square feet. This works out to $7.10 per square foot. I'll note there is a discrepancy in the leasable area. The I&E shows, or the financial statements show 33,225 square feet, which is the same as what Altus has. If you use that square footage, our rent would equal $7.48. So We have the gross potential at 248,657. We've reduced that by vacancy at 3%, expenses at 3%, and shortfall at 385. I'll just note that vacancy and expenses are going to be a common issue on these properties. Altus is at 4% for all 10 properties, and we're at 3%, the city, and expenses, the city's at 3%, Altus is at 7%. So you'll see that reoccurring throughout all the properties. So this gives us our NOI of 229,916. I'll note there's about a $45,000 difference between Altus and the city on that figure. We've capitalized this at 6.10%. That gives us our total value at $3,769,000. Addenda starting on page 12. There's a couple plan views of a typical unit and the site showing the different sizes of units. Page 13 shows the total configuration of a typical unit, offices in the front, warehouse in the back. Page 15, this is going to go into that portfolio sale. So this was Pro REIT buying 9 industrial properties in Winnipeg. I'll note the date of this article at April 13th, 2021, which is 12 days past the reference date.
Mhm.
First paragraph on page 15 states Montreal-based Pro Real Estate Investment Trust is closing its purchase of 9 industrial properties in Winnipeg as part of an $86.8 million March agreement. So this was negotiated in March, which is before the reference date, according to this article. The portfolio also included 3 assets in Ottawa. Turning to page 16, and I'm just going down from the top, I'm just going to point out some of the relevant sections in this article. Starting at the top, second sentence, the price and the vendors of the Winnipeg buildings would remain confidential until the deal finalizes in April. Once again, we had the date from LTO as June 30th, 2021. But these were negotiated in March, and then the deal was finalized in April. And then finally, all the conditions were met in June. Winnipeg sources have told the Western Investor that the 9 buildings include at least part of the Quad Real portfolio in the St. Boniface industrial area. Total price was in the neighborhood of $32 to $34 million. The buildings are in the industrial park within close proximity to downtown and Trans-Canada Highway, feature clear heights between 14 and 21 feet. They are currently 97% occupied by a diverse mix of local and national tenants. Weighted term is 3 years, and most of the leases include contractual rent steps. In the red box just below that, in the second quarter of 2018, Pro REIT bought a Quad Real portfolio of 6 properties. They just state that they've done very well and that Winnipeg's a safe, secure industrial market. Moving to page 17, this was the press release from when the sale actually went through with the details. So we can see here that it was 8 properties for $32.3 million. This is dated June 15th, 2021, which coincides with the LTO date. I'll note in the red box on page 17, there was 100% interest in 8 light industrial buildings in Winnipeg, comprising 250,000 square feet of gross leasable area, aggregate price of 32.3, and a capitalization rate of 6.1. On page 18, just a continuation of that article, it shows the properties that were sold. Once again, 6 of them are on the docket today. Going forward, we have the income and expense information as provided by the owner. And then following that, there is some outside sources, which I had referenced in my capitalization rate earlier in the presentation. And these just support those figures of that range between 6 and 7.25. So based on that evidence, we asked that the assessment be confirmed at $3,769,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do have some questions, Madam Chair, and I have some concerns with this post-reference information. Mr. Brown Okay, let's just deal with this so we can deal with it once and then dispose of it for now. This article from Western Investor is post-reference. Agreed?
It was, which one are you speaking to?
Page 15, April 13th is indeed after April 1st, correct?
Correct. However, they're speaking about a March agreement, which is before the reference date, you'll agree.
And it was a confidential agreement that was not known to the market, correct?
Correct. At that time, it wasn't known to the market, but it was known to the purchaser and the vendor.
Okay. And then on page 17, you have a news release from June of 2021. That is similarly post-reference, correct?
Correct, but it's based on a negotiation that happened before the reference date.
No, I'm aware of that, but we don't. Okay, well, all right. Now let's just very quickly talk about the IAAO standard. I know that in your cap rate table that's bolted onto all of these properties today, it does indeed say, and Madam Chair, I can just speak to this verbally, even provided with the background. It's a large document. It's called the IAAO Verification Adjustment of Sales. Now, Mr. Brown, are you aware that in section 5.5, I will just read this very quickly. Under transaction conditions, it says transaction conditions include situation settlements or arrangements surrounding a sale. Adjustments to the sale price may be considered for the following transaction conditions. And then the second bullet point is acquisitions or divestments by large property owners. Are you aware of that?
I am fully aware of that.
Okay, and then
I did not just, as of right now, I have not disclosed the sale price. And we have relied on these sale prices. They were not used in our model.
No, but you did suggest an aggregate cap rate. And I'm just, okay. And can we agree the quad reel where it says divestments by large property owners, can we agree the quad reel is a large property owner?
They are, but it also says you can make adjustments to it.
Okay,
meaning
and
you don't completely throw the sale away.
Okay, and then acquisitions by large property owners, can we agree that ProREIT is indeed an investment trust? They're a large owner as well, correct?
Absolutely. 250,000 square feet is a big sale.
You bet. And then in section 5.5.2, it says, and I'm quoting verbatim, acquisitions or divestments by large corporations, pension funds, or real estate investment trusts that involve multiple parcels typically should not be considered for analysis. Can we agree that that's what the IAAO standard
Absolutely. And as I've stated, we did not use this in analysis. I do feel like it is indicative, a part of the equation, so to speak, of the value. But once again, I haven't disclosed the prices. I'm going to ask Madam Chair if she wouldn't make a decision on that. But as of right now, we haven't disclosed those prices.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, would you like me to continue on with my, would you like us to leave you with that decision regarding the inclusion board's consideration of the post-reference material and the aggregate sale price and cap rate, or would you like me to continue on with my questions on this file?
I think, maybe we'll deal, just because this is definitely an issue we need to discuss. So we'll just perhaps deal with the issue of the post-reference sale.
Okay.
Let me just see if the other panel members have any questions for Mr. Brown regarding same, and then we will take a brief adjournment to discuss. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions for Mr. Brown?
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, nor do I. So I'm going to, Mr. Lunn, I'd like to take a brief recess to discuss this matter. Thank you very much. Welcome back. We have discussed the assessor's request, and we are not allowing the request to include post-reference sale information today on any of the properties.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I guess at this point, you've made your presentation regarding the first property. So, Mr. Story, I believe
Yes. Yes,
you may
thank you,
proceed
Madam
with
Chair.
your presentation. Thank you.
Oh, may I ask questions on the chief?
Oh, I'm sorry.
evidence?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'll be very expedient here. Mr. Brown, can we agree this property is, well, let's say about 40 years old or so, based on its effective age and actual age?
Correct. It was built a year after I was born.
There you go. Okay. And lease or the land to plan for this property would be reasonably low at only 2.4. Typically, we'd like to see something in the range of, at a minimum, 3 to 1. Is that fair to say?
I mean, 2 is adequate in some instances. This is almost 2.5. At 4, we start adding or considering adding excess land. So this falls between zero.
Isn't it above 4? So when I've seen you make the excess land adjustments, you bring it back to 4 to 1. Is that not correct?
Well, yeah, I said after 4, we start.
Oh, after 4. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Page 2, you've got the subject property leases here. Now, these were not considered in the valuation. Is that correct?
These were used in the model.
Okay. So they're used in the model, but they're not used in the workup or the analysis of this property for today's exercise. Is that fair?
Eventually, when a rent makes its way into the model, it's then used to create the model, which this was valued on. So inevitably, these rents were used to create the model, which is how we're valuing the property.
So this rent along with innumerable other rents, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then just very quickly, and I'll ask you this just once because cap rate we'll talk about a few times in expenses, and you quite rightly pointed out we're not too far away on rents for most of these properties. But in terms of, let's say, page 9 here on the cap rate table, is it safe to say that the city has not provided any study, any sales, or any calculations for the panel or the taxpayers to review? Is that fair?
I don't have any site-specific workups. We have the outside sources contained in the rear portion of my evidence, and yeah, we've done all the work, but we're not showing it here.
Okay, and just very clearly, the city is not bifurcating between single tenant, multi-tenant, or A grade or B grade. We're simply saying that the 20th percentile is 5.5 in all instances, and the higher end of the 80th percentile is 7.45. Is that correct?
There's a lot of variables that go into the model: age, location, size, quality, etc. So, I mean, inevitably, a multi-tenant is going to be larger than a single tenant generally. So, in that, it's a bit tricky to answer that yes or no, but we're not showing a breakdown. No.
Okay. And then also, can we just agree that 5.55 that you're showing on the very low end would be lower indeed than the lower end of most of the brokers being at, well, let's say starting at about a 6 or so. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. All right. And again, this valuation for this property is indeed simply model derived, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then in terms of the non-recoverable expenses, has the city submitted anything into evidence to support their position?
I don't have anything in my brief, no.
Okay, and can we agree, though? I think this is true of all of these properties, but I'll be careful not to make a blanket statement. But certainly for this property on page 38, we do see in their statements that they do have consideration for non-recoverable expenses, correct?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so, okay, so just for this property specifically, in their income and expense statements, this is the last page, and it's not the last sort of group of under budget comparison, it's the second last at the very bottom. It does show non-recoverable expenses as a line item on their statement. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and they are showing leasing expenses, appraisal fees, and legal fees, correct?
Correct.
And those are borne typically from a market perspective by the owner, and they're not passed on to a tenant, correct?
Various ones are accepted as non-recoverable, some aren't, such as tenant inducements, etc.
Right, but leasing commissions and space marketing costs, and we're not considering inducements because we know that from the municipal board, we're not to consider inducements, but certainly space marketing costs and some of these professional fees around that, the leasing process would be borne solely by the owner. Can we agree on that as a minimum?
Yeah, I mean, these things vary from property to property. We've done our own studies. We found a range between below 1% up to 3 or 4 or 5%, with the average being slightly below 3%.
Okay, and just and I'll ask Madam Chair that some of these questions just carry forward. Many of these properties are very similar. It would be
Absolutely.
redundant to go over them over and over again. But
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, the 3% that's included here, is it fair to say that 2% would be an industry norm that would be dedicated towards a structural reserve allowance?
It depends on the property. We used 2% last cycle. We've given an extra percent this cycle. It's all based on studies we've done of professionally managed properties such as this.
Okay. And not to belabor this, and I won't ask you again, but there's nothing in evidence for us to consider based on the studies.
Just my verbal testimony.
Yep. Gotcha. Yep. Nope, that's fine. And then you're going to be at, say, 3, I'm going to be at 4 for vacancy, but can we agree that at the reference date in the Southeast, the 4-quarter average without consideration of collection loss, these are all in St. Boniface, is 3.93%. Is that fair?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, so, okay. In terms of industrial vacancy in the city of Winnipeg, citywide average is 3.9% at our reference date. But in the southeast quadrant, and I'm looking at this from Capital, they're suggesting that the overall vacancy without consideration for collection loss is indeed 3.93%. Is that fair to say?
What page are you on?
Sorry, this is from my evidence from the Capital Commercial Brokers Report, but they break out the southeast quadrant vacancy. Q1 of 2020 is 3.7. Q2 is also 3.7. There's a spike in Q3 at 4.6 and back down to 3.7 in Q4, but that equates to 3.93% vacancy in the southeast quadrant for industrial properties at the reference date.
Depends on the outside source you're looking at. On page 22, I have Q2 2020 from the Colliers. They're showing 2.5% for the east, 2.8 for the previous quarter, and 4.4 for the previous year. There's some variance. The way some of these report them are different. But yeah, we're using 3-year at 4. We're not that far apart. Okay,
so we won't talk too much about vacancy. We're close, but also just for my information, does your vacancy, does your model vacancy include a consideration for collection loss, or is it simply the physical vacancy over the useful life of the asset?
I'm unaware.
Okay, Madam Chair, those are my questions. Thank you. And again, I will simply ask that many of those continue forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, nor do I. So, Mr. Story, you can go into your presentation.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I think we've adequately established that we are indeed in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. We've got a property that's effectively from, 1979 to 1981, 40-year-old industrial warehouse. It is industrial commercial space. It's the north side of debates between Durand and Begin to the west. Okay, so again, the section that was built in 1979 has a plan area of 17,080 square feet with 18-foot wall heights. And the second section was constructed in 1981, and it has a plan area of 17,780 square feet. It has 20-foot wall heights. The city has assigned an effective age of 1979, which makes sense. We're not disputing that. Again, the land to building is slightly low by today's standards at only 2.44, and that's based on the fact that it sits on about 2 acres of land. It has M2 industrial zoning, and the site is slightly irregular, but we haven't made any adjustments for that in our calculation. So ultimately, when we look at the rents in place, we believe that those contract rents are the best indicators of value. It would potentially be distortive to look to other properties as opposed to the contract rents. If you're purchasing this property, these are the rents that you would be considering and purchasing. So ultimately, when we consider the 4 rents in place, they come out to an average overall blended rent of $6.42. That's supported by our inclusion of the rent roll. And you can see the lease terms. They run from 19 through 21, so they are indeed relevant to the April 1, 2021 reference date. Okay, so vacancy and collection loss, we are using 4% across the board today for all the properties that you hear for the reasons that I mentioned in my examination of the assessor. Shortfall, I don't think is going to be in dispute for any of the properties that we discuss here today either. Now, the non-recoverable expenses, you've all heard this before. I've provided you with our study. Just very quickly, the non-recoverable expenses are simply costs that are non-reimbursed costs that are borne by an owner and not transferred on to the tenants under any circumstances. Now, these are clearly, there are going to be costs that are borne by an owner in the competent ownership and management of an income-producing property. It's not a management fee. I don't want to conflate that. I want us to all be acutely aware that this fee is separate and apart. Management fees are typically recovered. I believe if we look at our properties today, the management fees are indeed recovered. Now, this is instead a stabilized expense ratio that represents the expenses, again, that are not recovered under any circumstance. You'll see that I think in all of our properties today, there's a line item in the reporting that includes non-recoverables, and in some years it will indeed be very high, and in some years it will be very low. It may even be non-existent. So the point of our exercise in including it is to stabilize those costs, those erosions to the effective gross income over the useful economic life of the asset. Now, just to be very clear, prior to the previous cycle, the assessor followed the same methodology. I think you're all aware of that. I'll sort of just summarize that, and just as a point of interest, the other tax collectors outside of the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba indeed still use this methodology. So we believe this is appropriate. It's consistent with principles rooted in appraisal and valuation theory. And just very quickly, the course materials from UBC Saunders says that the appraiser should account for non-recoverable expenses. The most important non-recoverable cost items to be aware of are space marketing costs, which include inducements and leasing costs. Now, again, we are not including inducements, but we are certainly considering space marketing and leasing costs. And as you can imagine, as space becomes vacant and as a broker goes to the market with that space, those leasing costs, those commissions can be quite high in some years, and in some years when you don't have vacancy, they will simply not be there. But again, we've tried to stabilize. This methodology that we've used is consistent with other jurisdictions in Canada. And in this study that we've provided for you, we've shown you a sampling of properties between the years 2018 and 2020. We've been very transparent. And when we exclude the inducements, the average is 6.64% with a median of 5.98. And just for interest sake, when we include the TIs, it's 10.6 with a median of 8.6, which is much higher. And I will note that these results are very similar to the research exercise that we completed in the previous cycle for the exact same purpose. So we believe that this fully supports the 5% of EGI. I mentioned that it is indeed a industry practice to consider 2% as a structural reserve, so we've included that as well. So we will respectfully submit that 7% be included as what we'll call a non-recoverable expense for each property on our docket today. And I will point out as well, we've included a cap rate study, we have sales, and all of the derivations that we've calculated today use the same methodology. So in order to continue to compare apples to apples, if for any reason you don't believe that the 5% ought to be instated, then we would suggest that the cap rates ought to be adjusted by a quarter point, as the effect of removing them would have a 35 basis point adjustment to our cap rate. So that is my piece on non-recoverables, Madam Chair. I will ask again that carry forward to the balance of our docket. And then the last issue that we'll be talking about are our cap rates. You have our cap rate study. We've included some of the issues that we've talked about regarding vacancy. We have market reports similar to the assessor. Ultimately, our swath of cap rates are not terribly far apart, so I won't go into the minutiae of all of our calculations or what have you, but suffice it to say that when we look at the previous cycle, we can see that there is compression. So we're not suggesting that the industrial market has not been has not shown some strength. It certainly has. But the cap rate compression on the Class A properties, that's the latest and greatest, the newest product that are amenity rich, that have high ceilings, great loading capacity, and the like. That compression from the previous cycle at April 1 of 2018, we should see between 25 to 50 basis point compression. That's on the high quality assets. Class B industrial should be 50 basis point compression for the higher quality and 0 to 25 for what we'll call lower quality assets. So I think for the most part, our properties today will fall somewhere between the 6.5 to 7 or so. And we've shown you how we've bifurcated by investment category. So Class A's typically would be applied 6 to 6.5. The very low end of 6% would typically be the smaller, what we'll maybe call the end user owner occupied type properties, the ones that are the industrial condos that are coming onto the market. Those would fall on the very low end. The latest and greatest would likely be somewhere in that 6.25, and then everything we're talking about today, I think, is going to fall between 6.5 to 7%. I don't think we have anything above 8% on a non-investment grade level today, so I'll leave that there. But all of that to say that when we take the actual rents in place, when we consider that 4% is a reasonable vacancy, with the 7% erosion to the EGI by way of non-recoverables to the tune of 5%, structural reserve of 2%, and a cap rate on this property of 7%, we come to an indicated market value of $2,649,282. So we do respectfully submit that the value not exceed $2,649,000. And ultimately, this is mostly going to be a cap rate and expenses question. So I think I will leave that there, and I'm open to your questions, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Mr. Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Story, you've used a 7% capitalization rate on this property?
Yes, we have, and that would fall in that, well, middle Class B. So yes, I think that's fair. Slightly, it's not. We wouldn't call this a strong A. Class A's are relatively rare in the city of Winnipeg, so I think at 7% we're in good shape. And we do have consideration for the age. You mentioned age when we're talking about how the model reacts. We see those factors as well, and then we also do recognize that there is a low land to building ratio that may impact the pool of end users for this property. So I feel comfortable at 7%. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Story. So the 7% is based then mostly on age and land to building ratio?
I suppose in this property that would be, well, we consider the entirety of the market. We look at the snapshot where this property should land. And yes, I think that's fair. I think we should also consider the income forecast. We should consider the strength of covenant. Of course, configuration and layout, siting. We have an irregular parcel. So we're also careful not to over adjust when we see certain factors. But ultimately, yes, we look at this property on a site-specific basis. We look at the income it generates, and we look at a larger picture, and then we attempt to place it appropriately so that it is assessed fairly. So yeah, again, 7% seems reasonable to me. Okay,
thank you. This is a flex warehouse?
Yeah, you would consider this a flex warehouse.
And do flex warehouses typically need more land area than a manufacturing, or less?
Well, they would certainly have a lower requirement, to be certain, but this is still reasonably low. And that's not to say that a larger land to plan is not beneficial. So if you're talking about what it needs at its base, at its bare minimum to function, yes, that would be correct. They would typically have a lower land to building. And yeah, of course, manufacturing would typically require a higher land to building, to be certain.
Okay, thank you. One last question. This property is 40 years old, but it's fairly well maintained. No structural issues, anything like that?
No issues that we're aware of. We're not suggesting that the condition is an issue. It seems to, I mean, obviously it's professionally managed. It's sold between two big players, so no issue with deferred maintenance, and we certainly have not made any adjustments to that with that in mind. So no, I think we could be safe to assume the property is in good condition.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belenky. Any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Story, did you have rebuttal evidence or?
No, I think we're
anymore.
good. I think we've covered most of the issues, and I think the rest of these will sort of fly by. They're all they're in the same neighborhood. They're all very similar. So no, I don't, and I think
Okay.
we've addressed many of the issues that we'll be hearing today. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So does either party have a need for summary on this matter?
Oh, thank you.
No, I think we're good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will move on to the next matter on the docket, which is 214 Debate Street. So, Mr. Brown, oh, sorry.
Switcheroo.
I looked up and
Oh.
I'm sorry. So please proceed.
Thanks, Madam Chair. File number 22-1491, roll number 060530945500, pertaining to the address of 214 Debate Street. We are defending the assessed value of $4,110,000 for the 2023 roll year based on the reference date of April 1st, 2021. It consists of one building with 1 story, built in 1988. It has a wall height of 22 feet with a leasable area of 39,808 square feet. On page 2, you may see that there was a sale soon after the reference date. Just below it are the subject property leases with their net rent ranging from 5.95 to 7.50 per square foot. Unit sizes range from 5,505 to 13,215 square feet. Please note that unit 1 and 6 are both the highest rents due to them both having the newest leases. On page 3, we provided map views showing its location on the east side of the city near Dougal Road off Began Avenue. Aerial views are on page 4 and exterior views on page 5, showing the loading bays with one above grade. There are a few interior photographs on page 6 and 7. And on page 9, we've highlighted the industrial portion for capitalization rates. The city uses a range of 5.55 at the 20th percentile to 7.45 at the 80th percentile. The subject's cap rate falls within this range, as well as supported by the outside sources. On page 10, you will find our income workup. There are 5 premises with a total of 39,808 square feet leasable area. The average rent is $6.71 per square foot, which gives us our total potential gross income of $266,973. We've reduced that by a vacancy loss of 3% plus expenses at 3%. With a shortfall at $3.85 per square foot. This gives us a net operating income of $246,597. And we've capitalized that at 6%, in which generates our capitalized value of $4,109,950, which we've rounded up with our final value of $4,110,000. On page 12 shows the 8 units, and on page 13 shows a typical unit. These are the flex warehouse units with office space in the front and warehouse space in the back. And now I'll turn your attention to page 31. On page 31 through 40 is the income and expense questionnaire completed and provided, declared a minor impact with COVID-19. On page 35, it shows the contracts in place during the reference period, in which states that there was one vacancy as of April 1, 2021. On page 39, as previously gone over the tenants info on page 2, these show the leases in place. And that concludes. Based on this evidence, we believe the assessed value of $4,110,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I have a few questions, yes, and thank you for your presentation. So for this property, you mentioned that the newer leases are at a higher rate, but can we also agree that 3 of these 5 leases are very, very short term at 3 years only?
Correct.
Okay. And can we agree, just as a general principle, that from an owner's perspective, a shorter lease would be tantamount to more risk? Is that a fair comment?
Sure.
Okay. Perfect. And then appreciate these interior photos that you have from inspection. 6 and 7, can we agree that these would be considered very, well, let's say, basic finishes? Okay, that's great. And then again, just the model on page 10, or sorry, the workup, that is indeed all modeled, correct?
Correct.
And then just, sorry to flip around here, but one last question. Page 35 has a stacking plan for this property. And when we see can we agree that when we see that orange or the red, it means that there's either a month-to-month lease or a lease expiry coming up? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And then with those leases expiring on the short term, that again, I guess I'm just reiterating that same question, that if we have lease expiries, that would be tantamount to more risk. And further to that, that would probably indicate that there would be leasing commissions on the horizon for this owner. Is that fair?
So what this is showing is that 33% will be vacant in 2023, 24% will be vacant in 2025.
Right. So that's on the near horizon, Mr. Brown, that would give an owner some concern if we have a large percentage of the space coming vacant in the short term. Is that fair comment?
It is fair. Some of these tenants have been around since 2015, 2017. This is page 36.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So just because the lease is going to expire doesn't mean they can't renew, but it would have some concern for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Although on page 36, they're showing 100% occupied as well.
Excuse me.
So that vacancy was taken care of rather quickly, right?
Okay, so it might be a renewal, but there are also short-term leases, and we can agree, Mr. Brown, that's not typical. 3 years is pretty. That's that would give you some pause. And then also, Mr. Brown, page 39. Just to reiterate, we had spoken about non-recoverables, and in this case, they are indeed showing. It's a bit blurry here, but it does show lease documentation, leasing expenses, appraisal, and legal. So they are indeed recording non-recoverables in this property quite explicitly, are they not?
Yes, they vary from property to property.
Okay, those are my questions, Madam Chair, and I'll just ask that some of those other questions just carry forward for the sake of experience.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. So here we are at 214 Debates. Property is built in 1988. It does have slightly low land to building. We've not adjusted for it. It's at 2.95 to 1. It is masonry with steel frame. Gross floor area is 39,551. The wall heights are 22 feet. The office finish varies from approximately 30% in Unit 1, 10% in Unit 6, and the balance of the units have approximately 15 to 20% office finish, so no issue there. We're on the south side of Debates, just east of Durand, and again, St. Boniface Industrial Park. So we've looked to the actual rents. We're not terribly far apart. ultimately our rents calculate to $6.70 when they're blended. And we can see that those rents are well, we have rents that the oldest rent we have here is from August of 17. We have one from 15 with a renewal in March of 2020. So based on what we know about this property, these contract rents seem to be most indicative of market. The city is saying 671, we're at 670. So okay, we'll just consider that a moot point for this purpose. Our vacancy rate is 4%, as we've indicated. That's an appropriate rate for the St. Boniface Industrial Park. Now, in this instance, we've used a 6.5%. This property has good loading capacity. This is the type of property that has done reasonably well for older properties in this market at this time. So we are indeed using a 6.5% cap rate. So with an NOI of 231,829, using a cap rate of 6.5%, we come to an indicated market value of $3,566,602, which we then round to $3,567,000. And we do respectfully submit that the value for this cycle not exceed $3,567,000. And with that, I am open to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I'll ask a couple. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay. You guys are just
Yeah, we're bouncing back and
I
forth.
didn't mean to call you Madam Assessor then. Sorry.
I'll take it. So this one's about 10 years older than the previous property, correct?
No, this one's 1988.
Oh, 10 years newer, sorry.
10 years newer, yeah.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party? No? Okay.
Nope, I think we're good. Thanks.
I will take the silence. Okay, so we can move on. The next property on the docket is 310 Debate Street. So would the assessor please proceed when you're ready?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is file 22-1507. On the right one, yeah. Roll number 060934611715. Civic address at 310 Debate Street. We're defending a model value of $9,415,000 for the 2023 roll year based on April 1st, 2021. This is a flex warehouse, once again located in St. Boniface Industrial Park. Consists of one building, which is one story, built in 2008, 24-foot wall heights, leasable area of 74,196, and a land to plan ratio of 2.14. Subject property leases in place at the time of the reference date. Both units are being occupied by the same leasee, which is Vita Health Products, and they've been there since 2017 in a 5-year lease for $8.83 per square foot. Location, once again, eastern side of Winnipeg, St. Boniface Industrial Park, off of Debates, which is between Mazenod and Plessis, off of Dugald. Aerial photographs on page 4 and street view photograph on page 5. So once again, we're close on rent, with Altus actually having a higher rent than the city for this property. We've used 3% vacancy once again, 3% expenses, and a shortfall of $3.85 per square foot. In the end, this gives us an NOI of $607,242. I'll note this is about $34,000 higher than Altus's NOI. We've capitalized this at 6.45%, which generates the rounded value of 9,415,000. I'll skip page 7 because we agree on rent. Page 8 shows our capitalization rates, once again showing a range from 20th to 80th percentile, from 5.55 to 7.45. Outside sources showing from 6 to 7.25. There's a plan on page 11 showing the layout. So this has quite a few overhead doors in the rear. It was originally devised as 4 units. Currently, we have it as 2, but it's 1 tenant in both. Page 12 showing the same plan, but as 2 units. And then some more configurations on page 13 showing the office layouts. Income and expenses located on page 14, 15, and 16. 16 showing the rents in place that were on page 3. And based on that evidence, we ask that the assessment of 9,415,000 be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so just again, this is a metal frame building, Mr. Brown, so that would have a presumably a shorter economic life than some other construction class, be it concrete or other. Is that fair to say?
It would be shorter than concrete, but I wouldn't put it out there that it's shorter than wood frame or anything like that.
Okay. And the land to plan on this one, now again, we've discussed that some of these properties require smaller land to plan, but this is indeed on the extremely low side, is it not?
I find that 2 is pretty typical for flex warehouses. There's no access issues on this property, as you can see on page 4. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't see a problem for a flex warehouse in this instance at 2 to 1, but
okay. But just as a general principle for site coverage, this would severely limit their ability to expand the property in the future, would it not?
definitely.
Okay. And all of this is, again, it's model derived, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think we've asked and answered all the other questions, so I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are, once again, we're in the St. B Industrial Park, single story. It's a newer property. It's built in the year 2008. It has a gross floor area of 74,196 square feet. It's the site is essentially rectangular in size. It has M2 zoning, and again, it does have that very low land plan. And I think we can all agree there's no issue here with the principle that the potential expansion for the property may be impacted. So we are, just to kind of get right to the, the nitty gritty of the matter here, we are using rents that are slightly higher than the assessor based on the actuals. We are including a 4% vacancy and collection loss. We are using 7%. Now our cap rate is at 6.5. The argument may be made that it might be lower in some instances, but we do have to recognize the potential or the restrictions on expanding this property going forward, and we all agree on that. So ultimately, using our inputs with a 6.5 capitalization rate, our income value is calculated as 8,822,959, which we then calculate to 8,823. Basically, I think we're just talking about cap rate and expenses here. You've heard our submissions and comments on both, so I think I will leave it there. We do respectfully submit that the value not exceed 8,823,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Assessor, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Just one, Madam Chair. Mr. Story, I think you'll agree at the end, the difference is mostly vacancy and expenses. Cap rates 0.05 apart.
Sure, but there's some discrepancy there. So yes, ultimately we'll be talking about expenses. We'll be talking about vacancy. And we are indeed still talking about the cap rate. So yes, those are the points where our arguments are being made. And I will point out that when we're using the higher rent and we're using the actuals, I think that cap rate from a market perspective makes sense. I've supported our submission on expenses, and I've supported our position on vacancy.
Thank you. That's
Oh,
fine.
those are,
Thank you.
okay, sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party on this matter?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Not from our side. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We can move on to the next matter, which is 385 debates. And please proceed when you are ready.
Madam Chair. This file number 22-1408, rule number 060929745500. Address is 385 Debate Street. We are defending
Oh,
this.
sorry. Oh, no, correct.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
That was my fault. I was still on 310 and my apologies. Please proceed. Okay.
Thank you. No worries. 384 Debate Street. We are defending the assessed value of $5,172,000 for the 2023 rule year based on the reference date of April 1st, 2021. It consists of one building with one story, built in 2003. It has a wall height of 24 feet with a leasable area of 51,187 square feet. On page 3, we provided map views showing its location on the east side of the city near Plessy Road. Aerial views are on page 4 and exterior views on page 5. You will find our capitalization rates on page 7, in which we've highlighted our industrial range of 5.55 at the 20th percentile to 7.45 at the 80th percentile. The subject cap rate falls within this range, as well as supported by the outside sources. On page 8, you will find our income workup. The two premises combine a total of 51,187 square feet of leasable area, and with their average rent of $6.94 per square foot, provides a potential gross income of $355,308. We have reduced that by a vacancy loss of 3% plus expenses at 3%, with a shortfall at $3.85 per square foot. This gives us a net operating income of $328,398, in which we've capitalized that at 6.35% and generates our capitalized value of $5,171,622, in which we've rounded up with a final value of $5,172,000. On page 12 is the income and expense questionnaire provided to us, advising fully owner occupied. Based on the evidence provided, we believe that the assessed value of $5,172,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions?
No, you know what? I think that I will just ask Madam Chair that my questions regarding vacancy expenses and cap rate carry forward, but otherwise, and just Madam Assessor, just to confirm, this is indeed all model derived. It's not overwritten by a person. It is simply derived by the model, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. So Mr. Story, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, okay, we are here at 385 debates. This one will be should be reasonably quick. We're only dealing with the cap rate, again, the vacancy and the expenses. But just to give you a sense of the property, we are on the east side of Debates, north of Camille Sis. We have inspection notes from 2004, going back to 2004, and again in 2018. And we have some photos in the appendix. It's a metal frame structure. It was built in 2003. The plan area is 40,336 square feet. It has a mezzanine area of 10,851 square feet. Main floor office is approximately 5,137 square feet, and the main floor office has tile flooring except for the reception area, which we note has ceramic tile. The mezzanine has two separate uses. There's 5,137 square feet of office and 5,714 of square feet of open storage, which has a low ceiling height below it, which we note. And so, of course, the low ceiling height, based on this mezzanine, that comprises about 20% of the warehouse area. It has one grade level loading bay. It has two dock level loading bays, and that would be considered minimal of a property of this size. So that those are our comments on the property. We've not disputed it is indeed owner occupied. The assessment is at $6.94 per square foot. We think that's okay. We're not disputing that. So in the interest of narrowing our issues, we'll speak solely to vacancy. Again, 4% is appropriate. We believe that the non-recoverables at 7% are appropriate. And we do recognize that this property ought to be applied a 6.5 cap. So with that being said, we come to an assessed value at the reference date of $4,759,018, and $18, which we then, of course, round to $4,759,000. We have a swath of photos here. It is you can see the production facility. You can see, the lunchroom. You can see the ceiling and the whole. You can see the entire tour of the building if you wish. But ultimately, we are using a 6.5 cap. And we do respectfully submit that based on our knowledge of the property, we think that the value ought not to exceed $4,759,000. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions?
I have a couple questions, Madam Chair.
Sorry,
It's okay. It's okay.
you're not even in the screen right now.
I'm not.
There, okay. Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Just a couple, and I'll be quick. So this is a 2003 building, so relatively new, right, Mr. Story?
That you are correct. Yeah.
Land to plan ratio of 3.55, so no problem there.
No issue there.
And 24-foot wall heights, no problem there.
No, that's good too.
Okay, and the pictures provided in your brief, the finishes look relatively
reasonable. Yep.
Reasonable for an industrial property. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party?
We are good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on. The next property is 410 Debates. So please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 22-1244, roll number 060929566600. Address is 410 Debate Street. We are defending the assessed value of $7,442,000 for the 2023 roll year, based on the reference date of April 1st, 2021. This is a one building with one story, wall height of 24 feet. Overall year built in 2004, with leasable area of 82,900 square feet. On page 2, you will notice the subject sale in 2002. Just a note that this is vacant land sale. Below is an exterior photograph of the subject. Page 3 are a few map views to show its location on the east side of the city near Plessy. Aerial views are located on that next page. And page 5 shows the exterior views, showing the loading bays, including one at grade and 2 below grade. Interior views on page 6 and 7. And once again, you can locate our cap rates on page 9 with 5.55 at the 20th percentile and 7.45 at the 80th percentile. Subject's cap rate falls within this range as well as supported by the outside sources. On page 10 is our income workup, showing the one premise with a leasable area of 82,900 square feet with a rent of $6.42 per square foot, providing a potential gross income of $532,218. We've reduced that by a vacancy loss of 3% plus expenses at 3%, with a shortfall at $3.85 per square foot. This gives us a net operating income of $491,188. We've capitalized that at 6.60%, in which generates our capitalized value of $7,442,242. And that's our final value. If I could please turn your attention to page 14. This is the site plan showing the existing building in gray and the proposed future additions in pink. And on the following page, at the bottom, under the available space heading, indicates the potential growth in the space description. Building may be expanded to 141,000 square feet. On the following page, page 16 shows characteristics of the possible expansion. And page 21 through 26 is the income and expense questionnaire completed and provided, declared COVID-19 has not had an impact. Also provided is their income statement advising the base rent of $510,663.96. And therefore, based on this evidence, we believe the assessed value of $7,442,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions?
I have just a few. Thank you. Madam Assessor, now for this property's age, this land to plan of 2.2, can we agree that this is quite low, or certainly on the low side? Is that a fair comment?
I'll answer this one, Mr. Story.
Oh,
Thanks.
okay.
I mean, we've been speaking about these land plan. I'm putting it out there that to me, 2 to 1 for a flex is reasonable. The fact that they are advertising a possible expansion to me tells me that that's not an issue here.
Okay, but we can agree this isn't a flex warehouse. This is a storage warehouse.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm so used to speaking about flex warehouses.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And but they do have some space at the back. I'm just looking for the aerial photograph.
Yeah, and if they do, while you're looking for that, if they do indeed carry on with those plans, they'll be built up to the property line, will they not?
It would be very low land plan.
It'll be very low. And part of the reason why this might be why this property is unique, are you aware that this is a purpose-built property?
Correct. It's government leased, which is why we have the high base rent.
Okay.
I'll note the model is significantly lower than the base rent, but yeah, it does look like it was purpose-built.
Sorry, you said the model is lower than the base rent? The base rent is $616 and the model is $642, isn't it?
Oh, that might be right. I saw it.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
510. I was looking at the total 510, and you're correct. We're slightly higher at 530.
Okay. And this property, just so we're clear, you're quite correct. It is a government property, and this was purpose-built to store government records, correct?
I mean, they're showing the tenant as transport.
Right, but it's okay. Okay, we can speak to that in my.
Okay.
So you weren't aware of that then? I think it actually says, yeah. Okay, so on page 12 of your brief, Mr. Brown.
Yep.
First paragraph, it says, specially designed and built for the long-term storage of paper records.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I think I'll leave my questions there and I'll save my comment. Oh, just one other question, I guess. Your photos in page 6 and 7, just at a minimum, can we agree that these would be considered very basic finishes for a property of this vintage. Is that a fair comment? It's a new property, but it has
Yeah, the
interior
upper
is not.
photograph is that of a storage warehouse, which are very typical, usually very similar. The offices don't look like anything special.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
I just might be missing about, is there a lease term on that property then?
Typically, government leases are quite long.
It's 20
This one was
20
from
years.
2003 to 2022 or 2023. I can't make that out. So a 20-year lease, it looks like.
Yeah.
And it started when?
2003.
Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. I have no questions. Okay, so Mr. Story, please proceed.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I was answering that question, and it was not put to me, so my apologies. Okay, so very
We'll
quickly.
let it go. Yeah.
Okay. So we're at 410 debates again. We've got a purpose-built property that was built as part of a RFP process. It's specifically built to house and store government records. That's what they do here. It is it is unique in that way. The land to building is quite low. We've gone over that a number of times. Now, in terms of the lease, Mr. Brown is quite right. It's a 20-year lease. The actual rent in place is $6.16. Although we do recognize, to be fair, that it is an older lease, so we're using the $6.42. We're not disputing the assessor's rent in this instance. We do continue to apply 4%, as I mentioned, 5% for non-recoverables. I had a chance to look at this property again, and I think that we submitted a 6.75 cap. I think that might be a touch high. So I have adjusted to 6.6%. That does match the assessor's cap rate. So ultimately then that brings us just a touch under $85 a foot, which makes sense to me. So I will submit a revised requested value, Madam Chair, if the panel is amenable. We are going to request a value of $7,006,025, which we then of course round to $7,006,000. And I think that makes sense. And then ultimately we're really just talking about what appropriate market vacancy ought to be and what the appropriate non-recoverable expense ought to be. And I think we've adequately summed that up. So I will leave that in your hands. But again, my amended submission would request a value of $7,006,000, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Do the assessors have any questions?
Just one, Madam Chair, thank you. So you, Mr. Story, you were just saying this was purpose-built to store records?
To store paper records from by the government.
Just curious as to what the specific requirements are to store paper records.
Sorry, the specific
The
records
specific
for
requirements to store paper records. What is this, custom built?
So in terms of like fire prevention and things of that nature? Or,
I would assume there would be fire prevention, maybe extra humidity control, maybe.
I would imagine, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have that in front of me, but I do know that it is purpose built. We're not now adjusting for your above your cap rate, but I will suggest that there are only, I don't know how many people in the city of Winnipeg require, over 80,000 square feet to store paper records. So it's let's just say it's a limited market, but ultimately we're going to come down to vacancy and expenses. And I think based on the size of this property and based on what we know about it, well, you're at $89 a square foot. I'm at $84.50. So I think we're not worlds apart, but I think that we've made a consideration here that should be fair for all. So
okay, thank you. I appreciate the adjustment to your cap rate. I just wanted to put it out there that this would not be difficult to convert from whatever it's being used for now into something else on storage.
Well, except it does have a very low land to building, and typically the amount of records, I will suggest to you, because I did read somewhere where I think they get deliveries once a week or something, some such thing. Most storage warehouses of this size would have deliveries coming and going all the time, much more frequently. So perhaps for their specific purpose, the low land to plan is acceptable and usable, but I will suggest to you that for adaptive reuse, there may be some consideration or some difficulties with that land to plan. But I'll leave that there.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
No, thank you.
All right, then. Thank you. We can move on to the next matter, which is 555, I never say this correct, Camille Sis, Street.
I think you nailed it.
That's it. Yep.
Oh, thank you.
I will be presenting all the properties going forward just to eliminate any confusion.
Okay.
Thank you. Are we ready to proceed?
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is file 22-1505, roll number 06053111200, located at 555 Camille Sis Street. We are defending an assessed value of $5,260,000 today, and that's based on a reference date of April 1st, 2021. This is a distribution warehouse. As you'll see in the pictures, it means lots of truck bays, lots of loading doors, goods coming and going constantly. I'll note that we've all heard of the supply chain issues during the pandemic, and these properties are well suited for those. So 2007 built, 22-foot wall heights, metal frame. We have a leasable area of 24,480 and a land plan ratio of 10.78 to 1. Two sales on page 2. Newest being in 2014 for 5.92 million. And the 2005 sale was a vacant land sale of 280,000. Page 3, once again, we're in the eastern portion of Winnipeg, located in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. This time we're a bit south of the previous properties on Camille Sis. Once again, it's between Plessis and Mazenod off Google. Aerial photographs on page 4. You can see a lot of trucks in the yard. A lot of good access, a lot of land. These types of properties do need extra land to store trucks, maneuver the trucks around, etc. There's a lot more traffic in these types of properties than the previous properties. Street view on page 5, relatively new looking building. Interior photographs, these were taken 5 days after the reference date, but I'll remind you that the physical condition is as of January 1st, 2023. Economic conditions, April 1st, 2021.
Yes.
Interior view, these are clear span, really good wall heights, lots of loading doors, very usable space for this type of property. Some more interior shots, including the office on page 8. Altus has a higher rent than us, so I won't go through my comparables on page 9. This is going to boil down mostly, once again, to vacancy, expenses, and cap. So our cap rates, once again, ranging from 5.55 to 7.45 at the 20th and 80th percentile, meaning 60% of the properties will fall in this range. Collier, CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield are showing ranges from 6 to 7.25. Page 11 is my income workup. Once again, Altus has a slightly higher rent than us. We're at $13.14. We've used 3% vacancy, 3% expenses, and $3.85 per square foot for shortfall. We capitalize that NOI at 5.7%. This generates the rounded value of $5,260,000. I'll note our NOIs are about 7,000 different, so not a huge discrepancy there, despite the differences in vacancy and expenses. There's a bit of a description of the property on page 13. 20 loading doors. There's could easily add an additional 12 doors. Low site coverage, would allow future expansion by up to 50%. And then, yeah, the square footage and everything is in accordance with what we have. There's a leasing ad on page 15. Unfortunately, there was no rate indicated on this. It just says market, but once again, we've agreed on rent, so not a big issue. So just over 5,000 square feet of office, washrooms and open workspace, 19,000 of cross-dock warehouse, 21 to 23 and a half clear height, 18 doors, 2 larger doors, and generator and sprinkler, etc. Shows the plan view on page 16 and the office is on page 17. Some more interior photographs on page 18 and 19. Oh, sorry, 19 is an aerial photograph and a map view. Page 22, this was the 2014 sale, just indicating that it was arm's length open market and that the intended use was the same and that the quality was good. Income and expenses shown on page 24 forward, and 26 and 27 show the leases in place at the time of the reference date. So based on that information, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at 5,260,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Brown?
I do. Mr. Brown, just a quick question regarding that sale that you've mentioned a couple times. This is pure industrial. Do you know, was this property, was this part of a portfolio sale, or was this was this a single acquisition?
We have it as a single acquisition. The sales mailer doesn't indicate that there was anything odd or anything unique about the sale.
I just wondered perhaps if it was a portfolio. So I don't know either, to be honest with you.
Okay,
so I didn't consider it, but okay. And I agree with you. That would be the interiors are that's the present physical. Now, in terms of the what we'll call the office area of a property like this would be commensurate with typical or basic interior finish for a distribution warehouse. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it doesn't have high-end finishes in the office, that's for sure.
Right. And it has a high land to building, but that benefit is captured in the much higher rent than the other properties that we'll typically see today. Is that fair to say?
No, we don't have additional land, and I think that's for that reason.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And that cap rate that we're showing would be on the very, very low end, certainly below what the brokers are suggesting, and indeed on the lower end of what you're suggesting. Is that fair?
It is. I'll note that there are not a lot of distribution warehouses in Winnipeg, especially not ones that are tenant leased. A lot of them are owner occupied. I mean, you can look at my rent comparables. I believe those are most of the rents that we have for distribution warehouses. So there's probably not a lot of sales of these. They are in high demand. With the difficulty in securing supplies in the last couple of years, a lot of companies are looking at increasing their space so that they can hold on to more, inventory and not rely on the transportation so much.
And they would more, and I don't disagree with that, but they would typically be built as opposed to leased. We can agree on that, correct?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. And again, my questions. This is now, all that being said, this is all a modeled workout, correct? None of this is overwritten. No. And then I guess just a procedural question from when from the department. When the new assessments come out, there is some period where you check what's called a percentage review. Is that fair to say?
That's accurate.
Okay. And was this one reviewed? I asked because it would appear that the cycle over cycle increase would be high. I just wonder if somebody reviewed that.
I mean, I don't have those notes with me. To me, it looks, I mean, the vacancy, the expenses, the shortfall are all consistent. We didn't go to actual rent, I don't believe, which would be a clear sign that we had overridden something.
Okay. So
it does look model, and I would say I would put it to you that the high increase. I mean, this is only. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
It's what a 45%.
The high increase would be from the model, seeing those rate increases in the market.
Okay, so there would be some major cap rate compression from the model's perspective for this property. Is that fair to say?
I don't have last cycle's workup in front of me. It could have been a rent increase, but yeah, I would that we did see the cap rates drop this cycle. And you indicated earlier there was compression this cycle, so yeah.
Okay. I think that's fine. I will leave that there, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belenky. Any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are, we've covered this one pretty well at this point. Of course, we have a distribution warehouse. There's some consideration for having a lot of trucks on the site. You can see that in my overhead on page 8. And so, of course, we have a large land to building, but that is indeed captured in the rent. This is 555 Camille Street. It's on the north side of Camille, east of Beguine, again, St. Boniface Industrial Park. It is a 2-story building. It was built in 2007. It has a gross floor area of 24,480 square feet, which includes a 2,550 square foot mezzanine. It has a site size that is rectangular of approximately 236,398 with M2 manufacturing. So we've used the lease in place in this instance. It's $13.50. We've used the vacancy and collection loss of 4%, which we think is fair. Shortfall of 385 is not in dispute. Our non-recoverables, again, are 7%. And in this case, we've come in with a cap rate of, well, it says 7%, but that should indeed be 6.5. Sorry, there's a typo on that page, but in the workup, it is correct. So we're using 6.5. Ultimately, that gives us a value of $4,515,138. That gives us a very high assessment per square foot. But ultimately, I do agree with what Mr. Brown is saying. Distribution warehouses have done reasonably well during the pandemic, and we'll hope that continues to be the case as we come out of it. But ultimately, I feel very comfortable at a 6.5 cap and a value of $4,515,000 rounded. And I think that is the balance of our brief here. And I think that some of my comments regarding cap rate and non-recoverables and vacancy should just carry forward. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belenky.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary by either party?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
No, thank you. We are good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we can move on. The next matter is 45 Beguine Avenue.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was like, did I say that right? Okay.
I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. I'm not sure the actual, but I will be saying Vegas.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about then. Okay.
We are on the same page. And can I just ask for a quick recess after this property, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. File number 22-1488, roll number 06053076-500, civic address at 45 Beguine Avenue. We have a 2023 roll year assessed value of $4,900,000 based on April 1st, 2021. This is a flex warehouse, 7 units, built in 1990, 24-foot wall height. A leasable area of 43,164 and a land plan ratio of 3.12. On page 2, this was involved in the pro-read sale. Below that, we show the subject leases in place. These were mostly signed in 2020. There was 2 in 2019. Mostly 5-year. There was a few 3-year leases, and these range from 7 all the way up to 9. Interesting to note that the highest rent is also the largest space. Plan view on page 3. This is located on the corner of Debates and Bagan off of Dugald between Mazenod and Plessis. Aerial photographs on page 4. Bottom one showing the rear with the loading doors and the access. There is a gated compound storage, outdoor storage in the bottom left-hand corner as well. Once again, we agree on rent, so we can skip page 5. I won't go through those. Page 6, our capitalization rates, once again, ranging from 5.55 to 7.45, but the outside sources from 6 to 7.25. Page 7 shows our income workup. So we have the different units, average rent of $7.48. Once again, Altus at the same. So this is going to boil down to vacancy at 3%, expenses at 3%, and capitalization rate at 6.1%. I'll note that our NOIs are about $17,000 different. Page 9 shows some of the characteristics of the building. And then skipping to page 29. Yeah, 29 is the beginning of the income expenses as provided by the owners. The details start on page 33. Once again, we have a leasing diagram here showing that 54% of the leases are ending in 2022, so a year after the reference date. The remaining leases ending in 24 and 25. Page 34 shows the rents in place, as we showed on page 2. Most of these leases were signed in, well, there was one in 2009, one in 2014, the rest were in 19 and 20 and 21. And then the income expenses following that, the financial statements ending on page 38. So based on that information, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at $4,900,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Brown?
I just have a few, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Brown, we spoke about, I've been talking about land to building a fair bit here, but let's just look at this property regarding, this is on your page 4. The parcel boundaries, this would be somewhat irregular, is that fair to say?
Somewhat, well, like a parallelogram almost.
Yeah, and the siting of the improvement, that would not be considered, that would be irregular as well. Is that a fair comment?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, the siting, the way that the property is actually situated on the site would be considered somewhat irregular as well, would it not?
Do you mean the fact that it's facing Bagan and not Debates?
Just the way that the property lines on the northern side of this property are almost right up against the. I wonder almost if you'd need an easement to get around this property from the adjacent property on the north parcel boundary.
Oh, I see.
On your top, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's possibly common ownership, but if you were to market it, that could be an issue.
Okay, and then the leases, you quite rightly said that we have some vacancy or renewal coming up on the horizon, correct?
Correct.
And then of course, I think we've established that the leasing commissions typically are not borne by anyone but the owner, so that would give some support to the request for the instatement of the non-recoverables. Would that be generally a fair comment?
Once again, they vary from property to property. We're not site specific on those. We've done our study and they show 3%.
Okay. Okay, and the cap rate and indeed everything here is modeled, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. Oh, I should ask you one question. Are you aware that there's some issue with soil concern for this property? With has that been brought to your attention at all?
Are you saying there's contamination issues?
No, it's poor quality soil that's affecting the flooring and the actual structure of this property. Has that been brought to the department's attention? I see it in my notes, And I wonder if that you were made aware of that, or
Not aware of that.
Okay.
Like, are you saying they had trouble pouring their slab or?
I understand they're having some structural issues, but I'll get to that in my presentation. I just wanted to see if that was known and if that would be considered. But that's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. So Mr. Story, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So here we are at 45 Begin. I think I say that street name wrong every time. I don't necessarily know what the right pronunciation is, but here we are. It's a one-story industrial property. It's on the northwest corner of Begin and Debates in St. Boniface. It's an industrial flex warehouse. It has masonry wall improvements. It has a total plan and gross floor area of 43,056 square feet. It has 24-foot wall heights. There are 7 units, and the office finish varies from about 15% to 20%. Now, I have a note here that says the leasing agent previously reported that the property suffers from floor and structural concerns due to the poor underlying soil condition. I don't have anything that is simply a report from the previous agent. So we've adjusted for that in our cap rate, but I'm going to bring that back because I don't necessarily think that's fair to suggest that without any supporting documentation. So we had adjusted for those concerns and adjusted our cap rate from 7, which would be typical, to 7.25, but I am going to bring that back to 7%. So I have made that adjustment. We've talked about vacancy and collection loss, and we've talked about shortfall, non-recovered, and cap rate. So ultimately, this is an issue where we're looking at a cap rate of 7%, updated from our 7.25. Again, the 7.25 that was put into our submission was based on the fact that there was some structural concern, but I don't have anything to support that other than a verbal report. So I'm going to suggest that our NOI is 281,864. And capitalized with a 7% cap rate, we come to an indicated market value of $4,026,630, which we then round to $4,027,000. And I think I will leave it there, and I'm open to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. We're good.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We will take a brief recess now. Should everyone come back about 5 after 11? Is that enough time, or would you like more time?
That sounds good.
Good, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next matter we will be hearing this morning is 30 Durand Road. So, Mr. Brown, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm that Mr. Story's ready.
I'm sorry, Mr. Story, can you hear us?
I don't believe he can.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry.
Should we wave?
Yes. Mr. Story, can you hear us?
Yeah, it doesn't look like he can hear us.
I'll pause the stream until he can get his audio back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for noticing, Mr. Brown.
No problem. I don't want to repeat myself, so.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. We will be proceeding with the next matter on the docket, which is 30 Durand Road. So, Mr. Brown, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is file number 22-1495, roll number 060530917000, civic address at 30 Durand Road. We're defending a 2023 assessed value at $1,389,000 based on April 1st, 2021 reference. This is a flex warehouse built in 1988 with 20-foot wall heights. The leasable area is 11,759. And the land to plan ratio is 2.92. Once again, this was involved in the portfolio sale, and below that we have the subject leases in place at the reference date. Unit 1, 2,940 square feet, was signed in 2010 for $825 a square foot, 12-year lease. And then the axe throwing Winnipeg signed in 2017 for 4 years at $6. Map view on page 3, once again located in the St. Boniface Industrial Park, this time on Durand. Aerial photograph on page 4, slightly rectangular shaped loading docks in the rear. We can see on page 5 some of the properties that were heard today on this map, all located very close to the subject. Street view on page 5 and interior photographs of the axe throwing portion of the property on page 6. We have a slight discrepancy in rent on this one, so I will go through my comparables on page 7. We have all flex warehouses located in the same area. These leases were signed from 2018 to 2020. Ranging from 2 years up to 5. Ranging from 1 year up to 5 years. The leased area ranges from just over 2,500 square feet all the way up to 6,000 square feet. Wall heights are 20 or 22, and the year builds range from 75 to 95. We can see the net rents as reported by these properties on the right-hand column, ranging from $7 up to $8.95. Capitalization rates on page 8, once again, ranging from the 20th percentile at 5.55 to the 80th percentile at 7.45. 60% of the properties will fall in this range. Outside sources showing 6 to 7.25. Page 9 shows our income workup. So 3 premises, average rent of $7.40. I'll note that Altus is at $6.93, so not a huge variance, but there is a variance. 3% vacancy, 3% expenses, $3.85 shortfall. Gives us our NOI 80,571. We capitalize that at 5.8%, which is significantly lower than some of the other properties we've heard today, but the smaller properties do generate a lower cap rate. From what we're seeing in the market, there's less risk on these smaller properties. This gives us our estimated value of $1,389,000 rounded. Some details about the property on page 11. And then we can skip right to page 30. Actually, 28 through to 30 are all architectural plans for the subject, showing the site. And then 29 and 30 show a typical unit. Once again, offices in the front and warehouse with loading docks in the rear. Page 35 shows the leases in place and the length. So 50% being 2 tenants. One of them is moving out in 2021, or the lease ends in 2021. The other one's in 2023. The details for those leases on page 36. So the one that ends in 2021, that was signed in 2010. And the axe throwing was signed in 2017, also ending in 2021. Financial statements on the following pages, showing how the property is performing currently. Based on that information, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at $1,389,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Brown?
I have a few questions. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Brown, just in terms of the subject leases, I noticed that you're showing capital industrial sales, but that lease at 825, that's a 1-year holdover, is it not, based on the submission? It's a very short-term lease. That's what I have in my record. It's my submission.
So it's showing that it's signed in 2010 for 12, so expiring in 2022. That would probably be based on previous INEs, because this one is showing that it's over, I guess, at the very end of 2021, December 31st.
Okay. And you don't have Powerland Computers in here. You should have that lease as per their submission. That's at 675, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And can we agree the axe throwing people, would that be considered a lower quality covenant? Is that fair to say from a market perspective?
It could be.
Yeah. So when we see, like, I don't know, if you see a CrossFit gym or a axe throwing or something taking up space in these properties, typically they're shorter term lease, and typically they would constitute a weaker covenant. Is that fair comment?
Yeah, I mean, typically they're not going to invest a lot of into the property. You know, their finishes are pretty simple and they can move quite easily.
Right. Okay. Now, in terms of your rent comps, Terracon Place, can we agree, just in Winnipeg's industrial market, that is a somewhat unique property, and it would be higher quality certainly than what we're talking about. Is that fair?
I would consider that superior, correct?
Okay. And then I also looked here at the property on Niagara, 1329. You've got two rents here, but there are indeed a range of rents in that property. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, most properties do have a range.
Okay, and these do have properties, to be fair, at the low end at $6 and some at $6.50, $6.75, something like that. Is that fair?
Sure, depending on the configuration of the unit, the location of the unit, the quality of the unit, for sure, there'll be some variance.
And 1301 Dugald, is that the fellow who rents equipment? Is that the equipment rental place that has a showroom where they rent? So it has something of a different flavor, and it would certainly have a higher land to building. Is that fair comment?
Yeah, I mean, these don't have showrooms. I don't know offhand what's in 1301 Dugald, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay, that's okay. And I do believe that you mentioned that this would be a fairly low cap rate, but it is simply generated by the model, correct?
Correct.
And all of the inputs are generated by the model, and there's not a consideration to, I guess, the actual rents in place. Is that fair? Just for the purpose of coming to this valuation.
Correct. The comparable properties in the model are showing a higher rent than the subject. That's correct.
Okay. Madam Chair, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blanky, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are here at 30 Durand, and we're still in the St. Boniface industrial area. We have a land to plan building on this land to plan ratio on this building of 2.92 to 1, with site area 34,123 square feet, plan area of 11,680 square feet. Now, there is some discrepancy in the rents. We have used the actuals just as a matter of the methodology of how we ought to view these properties. If the rents are indeed close to the reference date, then there's no reason for us to look to other properties, but rather we look on a site-specific basis to the actual rents in place. So if you follow me, please, to page 12, you can see the three tenants at the reference date. We have lease starts ranging from March of 18 through January of 21. And I note that the overall blended rent becomes $6.94 based on the actual contract rents in place. So the model generated rent of $7.40 is indeed high for this property. We have no reason to believe that the owner would accept less than what the market is willing to bear for this property. Vacancy is at 4%. Shortfall is at $3.85. Again, our non-recoverable expenses are broken out as 5% is a stabilized allowance for non-recoverables, 2% is a structural reserve. You've all been made aware of our position. And ultimately, our cap rate on this property is 6.5%. It is indeed on the lower side, but ultimately the value that we're coming to on a per square foot basis makes sense. And the ultimate value that we're seeking today is $1,093,000, 1,092,739, of course, rounded to 1,093,000. So ultimately, we're requesting that the cap rate be adjusted to 6.5. I do note we have the stacking plan on page 22. I don't think this is in dispute. We see that there's a vacancy on the horizon for this owner. That would be tantamount to more risk, but we haven't made any distortive adjustments. We think 6.5 makes sense. And again, ultimately, 1,093,000 is our request here today. Again, based on the actual income in place, a reasonable vacancy allowance, the non-recoverables that we've supported with our submission, and a cap rate of 6.5. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I have no questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Belinkie.
I have no questions, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on then. The next matter is 36 Durand Road. So, Mr. Brown, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 22-1496, roll number 0605-309-1400, civic address 36 Durand Road, defending a value of $1,702,000 based on April 1st, 2021 reference date. This is one building with 5 units, built in 1980 with 18-foot wall heights. Leasable area of 15,885 and a land plan of 3.44. Page 2, once again, this was involved in the pro-read sale. Subject leases in place at the reference date shown below. These are ranging from 6.25 up to $7.5 per square foot, all net. We have the map view on page 3, once again, neighboring the previous property. Aerial view on page 4. So this faces the north with the loading docks on the west side and the east side, which you can see on page 5. Or I guess it would be the man doors on the west side. And parking. There's an interior shot of one of the units on page 6. It's a retail store operating. Rent comparables on page 7. Once again, all located within the region. Similar size. The wall heights are ranging from 16 to 20, and the effective year builds are ranging from 75 up to 95. We can see the net rents for these properties range from $6.75 up to $8.95. Capitalization rates on page 8, once again from 5.55 to 7.45 in the 20th and 80th percentiles, and outside sources from 6 to 7.25. Page 9 shows the income workup. We only have a slight variance on rent, about 13 cents a square foot. We're at 723 average. This generates about a $2,000 difference on the potential gross income. We've further reduced that by 3% vacancy, 3% expenses, and shortfall at 385, and we've capitalized that at 6.25. Gives us our value of $1,702,000. I'll note that our NOIs are about 8,000 different, so not a huge discrepancy. There'll be a 1/4 point difference in the cap, so mostly on the cap this property. Page 12. This shows a 2019 leasing brochure for the subject property. So about 2 years before the reference date, they were seeking $5.75 per square foot. The ad shows some of the characteristics of the property. This is when it was owned by Quadreal before it was sold to ProREIT. They talk about the location and the configurations and the sizes and wall heights. Page 13 shows some of the industrial parameters, I guess you'd say, or market indicators for 2019. Once again, that's 2 years prior to the reference date. Page 15 shows the configuration of the property with the different units. And page 16 shows a typical unit, the office portion of a typical unit. Moving on to page 33 is the beginning of the income and expense statements provided by the owners. We have the tenant sites plan on page 37, showing 26% of leases ending in 21, 14 and 22, 14 and 23, 14 and 24, and 28 or 26 and 25. Subject leases in place on page 38. These are the same as what was shown on page 2. And then the financial statements located after that. Based on this information, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at $1,702,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have questions for Mr. Brown?
I do, thank you. Mr. Brown, you pointed out, I think quite rightly, that before the reference date, they were seeking, their asking rents were 5.25, is that correct?
2 years before the reference date, correct?
Right, okay. And the rents that you've used are modeled, correct?
Correct, they're pretty close to the actuals located on page 2.
Okay, and we agreed that Terracon is superior, and you've got 2 entries from Terracon here, correct? And they range from 7.25 to 7.95.
Correct.
Okay, and you've got the interior for the designer who's got some retail space. Can we agree that, well, let's say that would be considered somewhat Spartan finish, so somewhat.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, and the wall heights in this one, I think these are some of the lower ones that we've seen today. These would be 16-foot clear heights, correct?
Interior would be closer to 16, 18 as an exterior measurement.
Okay, I think they say on the addenda that they're 16 feet, but yeah, typically 2 feet below the exterior. They're measured from the exterior, correct?
Correct. Ours are, yes.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, and last question, and not to put too fine a point on this, as we're almost at the end here, but in the page 40, I believe, oh, sorry, page 37, we have some vacancy on the horizon to this owner. Is that fair to say?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, and then on page 40 also, we see in their statement, they explicitly make a comment about non-recoverables, and in this case, they do once again speak about lease documentation fees, leasing expenses, appraisal fees, and legal fees, correct?
Correct. Once again, we are doing a market view. Each of these do vary, and some are higher, some are lower.
Okay, but just so we're all clear, the point of our exercise today is to indeed to perform a site-specific review of each property under appeal, correct?
Correct. We're using a model, which obviously isn't site-specific. Once again, some properties are lower than 1, some are higher than 4 or 5.
Okay.
We've used 3.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. So Mr. Story, please proceed.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot that I'd be presenting here. I think we kind of covered it, but okay. 36 Durand, again, St. Boniface, industrial area. We have lower wall heights than what we've typically seen today. We have a slightly irregular parcel. We haven't made an adjustment. We have a multi-tenant warehouse. We would consider this a flex warehouse, 16,000 square feet, 4 units, 15,985 square feet of leasable area. Again, this is the south side of Durand. That's east of Beguine and north of the Bates. Ultimately, we've used the actual rents in place. I've itemized them for you on page 12. The actual rents in place are $7.06. And there's no reason for us to believe that those rents aren't the exact market rent that should be applied here. This is what the property is commanding, and so that's what we've used. That seems to be the most fair, as opposed to using proxy rents. So we've applied the actual rents in our calculation. we have once again used the St. Boniface vacancy and collection loss of 4%. We have applied 2% for a structural reserve, with 5% going to non-recoverable expenses borne by the owner. You can see, as I've mentioned a number of times here, they are in this group of properties, we are seeing that the owners are explicitly mentioning non-recoverable expenses in their statements. So they are certainly applicable in this instance. The capitalization rate ultimately that we've used here is consistent with the other properties that we've looked at today. We're using 6.5%. Though the rents are somewhat low here and the ceiling heights are a bit lower, 6.5% I think adequately captures the risk profile of this property, and we are comfortable at that rate. So all that to say that the value from our perspective ought not to exceed $1,511,524, which we then of course round to $1,512,000. And I think that I will leave that there. The balance of my brief includes some of the rent roll information, the stacking plan, and the information that we've already touched on. So I suppose ultimately, given the actual rents and some of the other parameters that we've discussed a number of times here, we feel very comfortable at a value of $1,512,000. And with that, I'm open to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, do you have questions for Mr. Story?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, nor do I. Is there a need for summary from either party?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, so then we can move on to the last property on the docket this morning, which is 70 Durand Road. Mr. Brown, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 22-1498, roll number 06053091-200. Civic address 70 Durand Road. Assessed value $7,152,000 based on April 1st, 2021. This is a flex warehouse with 10 premises, 10 units, built in 1981 with 20-foot wall heights. Leasable area at 72,186 and a land plan of 2.18. Once again, on page 2, this was involved in the portfolio sale from Pro REIT. And below that, we can see the leases in place at the reference date or for 2020. Page 3 shows the map view. Once again, this is a neighboring property of the previous two. We can see that once again on page 4 and the rear of the building showing the loading bays or the loading doors. Some street views on page 5 into page 6. And then we have some interior photographs on page 6, 7, and 8. Page 9 shows my rental comparables. Similar to the previous property, located in the same area, all signed between 17 and 2019. Leasable area ranging from 4,160 all the way up to 12,524. We have wall heights ranging from 16 to 24. Effective year built ranging from 79 to 90. 95, and the net rents ranging from $6.75 up to $7.45. Cap rates on page 10. Income workup on page 11. So we have 72,186 square feet. Average rent of $6.97 a square foot. It's about $1.13 more than Altus, so this is probably our biggest discrepancies in the rental rates. We have vacancy at 3%, expenses at 3%, and a cap rate of 6.5. I'll note that there is no argument on cap rate on this property. It is mostly rent and expenses. We do have a $98,000 difference on NOI, so that is the argument here. Addenda starting on page 13 shows the characteristics of the building from Pro REIT purchased it. And then the income and expenses are located on page 36. So once again, these leases, they have one ending in 21, one ending in 22, and then the rest are 23, 24, 25, and 26. Although 26 is almost 40%, so there are some longer leases in place in this property. The tenant roster shown on page 37, and then the income and expenses on page 39. And based on that, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at 7,152,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Brown?
I have a few questions, yes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Brown, this land plan, this is going to be, I think, the lowest that we've seen today at 2.18. Can we agree that that is certainly on the low side?
I will agree that's the lowest we've seen today, but I will stay consistent in that 2 to 1 for flex warehouses, I feel are adequate.
Okay. And then if we look at the interior photos, can we agree that those would be pretty basic? Is that a fair comment?
Correct.
Okay. And you do have the leases in place here. So I guess my question is, I understand when the department has to create the assessments that it would be preclusive to do each one by hand, so to speak. But for the purpose of our exercise today, would it not be more reasonable to defer to the actual rents in place as opposed to rents from other properties? Would that make more sense?
I feel like going site specific does have its merits, but not every property is performing as it should in the market. Different owners might look at it and think that they could get better performance out of it. At which point I feel like a market evaluation is superior.
Okay, and this one, just to be very clear, sold from Quadreal, who are a huge institutional player, so to speak, to ProREIT, who are another. So this property, to suggest that it's underperforming, well, maybe that might happen in a mom and pop organization. We can suggest can we agree that these are both astute players in the market? Is that a fair comment?
That's a fair comment.
Okay, and then just okay, so we've looked at the interiors, and now just in terms of these rent comps, just so we're comparing apples to apples, do you have any sense of the land to building on any of these, or all of these, or was that considered, I guess, just in the interest of time?
I honestly didn't look a lot into these comparables due to time constraints.
Okay, that's okay.
But they are all in the same area, roughly the same age, and the sizes are all similar.
And we've agreed, I think, just to reiterate, Terracon Place would be superior to this property, and that's at 7.25, correct?
For sure, there's a lot of variables when determining rent, size, location, quality, etc.
And just further to my comment about using the actuals versus proxy rents, 2 of these are indeed on our docket today, are they not?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that creates a sort of interesting scenario where we're looking to other properties to determine the actuals, but okay, I'll leave that there. I think I've made my point. That's fine. And you didn't have a chance to look into them in great detail, and I appreciate that. That's fine. Now, the balance of this is just model derived, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and well, I think we've touched on just about everything else at this stage. So I think, and just of course, one last time, the owner does have a line item in their financials for non-recoverable expenses, do they not?
Correct.
Okay, those are my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. I have none. So Mr. Story, proceed when you're ready.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So here we are at 70 Durand. It's our last one in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. It's the northwest corner of Debates and Durand. We would call this a multi-tenant industrial flex warehouse from the early 1980s. It's masonry wall, which is good. It's got a plan area of 71,628 square feet, gross floor area 78,717 square feet, with a reported wall height of 20 feet. That's all according to the city record. The subject site is indeed irregular, and it has a total size of 3.6 acres, which is leading us to this very low 2.18, or suggested 2.19 based on rounding, but a very low land to building. But we haven't made an adjustment to the cap rate, so we're comfortable with the cap rate of 6.5. The assessors applied it, we've applied it to. In terms of the market rent, I will direct you to page 12. Now, we have 68,582 square feet. That's consistent with the submission of the owner. Now, I have made one adjustment. Now, just so I'm very, very clear, units 86 through 88 were occupied by Quadreal. They were clearly the owner occupiers. That's what we'll call an internal rent. We did not use $4 per square foot in our submission. We used $6, and I think we have mentioned that here. However, I think $6 might be a touch on the low side, so I have made an adjustment to $6.50, and that would represent the higher rents in that property at the time. So I just wanted to make sure that we're being very, very fair. So ultimately, our potential net market income becomes $424,925. And that's just on putting a market rent, or a rent that's commensurate with the actual performance on the property, to the owner occupied space. We do use a vacancy allowance of 4%, and we've spoken about that. Non-recoverables here are indeed considered, and once again, we've provided you with our workup in support of that request. So we do respectfully submit that the non-recoverables being stated. Structural allowance, typical of market at 2%, is applied, and a capitalization rate of 6.5%. That leads us to an indicated market value of $5,674,000. The value on a per square foot basis then makes sense to us. So with all those factors, basically we're just looking at bringing the rents back to what we feel are are appropriate based on the performance of the property, in stating the non-recoverables, and applying a true market vacancy and collection loss of 4%. So once again, Madam Chair, with that adjusted potential net market income, our value changed just slightly. We are slightly higher than our submission, but we are very comfortable at $5,674,000. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have oh, sorry, Mr. Brown, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Just one, Madam Chair, thank you. Mr. Story, your workup's using 68,582, correct?
It is using 68,582. That is correct.
Okay, but on page 23 and 24 of your brief, it's clearly showing 72,816.
Excuse me. Yeah, but that's through. Okay, so there's some vacant space there. Yes, you're correct. So, yeah, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belenky. Any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Duncan, any questions?
Just a question. So in the actuals, and the income expense, the owner has put in non-recoverables, and you folks put a 5%. Do you think those actuals are reflective of the 5%? Like, are those the same numbers when you do the math? I haven't.
So that's a great question. What we are trying to do is annualize those expenses over the useful life of the property. So in some, we don't want it to look like a roller coaster. We want it to be stabilized over the effective useful life. And I will point out that this has been accepted for for years, up until the last cycle. So we've provided you with our non-recoverable expense study, and it does indicate to us that that 5% is indeed supported. year over year. In some years, you're going. I'm just pointing out, Ms. Duncan, when the owner is including that line item on their statements, that it is indeed a factor that is considered in the market. In some years, it is going to be much higher than 5%. In some years, it may be as low as 0, and that's typically going to be based on again, space marketing costs, leasing, and commissions. Now, interestingly, a number of these properties that we've looked at today have vacancy on the horizon. So if you're an owner, when we're looking at the durability of the income stream, when we have vacancy coming up, we'll either have to renew or go to the market seeking a new tenant. And when we do that, we typically have to pay a broker a commission. And so in that year, that fee will be very, very high. We're not suggesting that we use the actual per year, or else we would have a distorted sort of roller coaster effect on that figure. So we do try to stabilize or even that out over the effective year. So that's over the effective life. So that's why we use 5% in that capacity. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, no, I realize the study says that as well. And then I just had them flip there. It's like actual versus, yeah, no, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just was wondering if you had an adjusted NOI then, as you did change the blended rents.
Yes, the adjusted NOI becomes, it becomes 368,811.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to check that.
Yep.
Those were all my questions. Is there a need for summary from either party?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Just very quickly, and thank you all for your time today. We're impressed with how we got through 10 properties so quickly, but ultimately I would ask the panel to consider the contract rents. And I will point out that I think that our request for the non-recoverables is well supported. Our slight adjustment to vacancy is supported, and our cap rate study supports our submissions here today. So that's my summary, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. We have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, panel members, and thank you, Mr. Story.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.